Okay, now, capitalism is a problem because it changes the fundamental nature of your brain, okay? So this is a article from the Atlantic Monthly, which is a very popular magazine in the United States. There are these neuroscientists who have done brain scans, and they discovered that power causes brain damage, okay? In fact, if you look at the brain of a psychopath and the brain of a wealthy person, it's pretty similar, okay? Yeah, they did brain scans, and it looks as though people who have too much money has brain damage. Why? Because a normal person is able to have empathy, is able to understand the feelings of others. Guess what? If you're too powerful, if you're too wealthy, you don't have the capacity to have empathy. You can't appreciate the feelings of others. So think of like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg. They have actually no concept of empathy, okay? They are completely unable to relate to the feelings of other people. This is Brian Johnson, okay? Brian Johnson's a millionaire. He spends about $2 million a year on health, okay? He's done some crazy things. So for example, he has a father and he has a son, and he believes in blood transfusion. So if you transfuse your blood, you become younger. So he's trying to figure out how to live forever, okay? So he'll do things like blood transfusion. But, he works so hard, man, because he'll get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, exercise. The food he eats is the most nutritious food in the world. And he'll regulate his sleep. He's always monitoring his heartbeat. He's always exercising, okay? His life sucks. And the question you have to ask yourself is, if you have so much money, why don't you just enjoy it, Why not just enjoy your life? Why are you focused on living forever, okay? And that's a problem with wealthy people. They're kind of scooping their head. Okay? He looks like a vampire, guys, okay? This is him when he first, started this project. And you can see he looks like a vampire now, all right? I'm not exaggerating here. Look at this guy. The problem is that there are lots of wealthy people in the world, and they happen to like this idea of living forever, okay? So let's do a thought experiment. You're a billionaire. Okay, you have like $100 million, $10 million, like $10 billion in the bank, $100 billion in the bank, who knows? You have a problem, which is, how do I keep this, right? Because you're gonna die, okay? And you have all that money, so you can do whatever you want. So what you do is you invest in Brian Johnson, you invest in scientific research to live longer, but you also do what? You also build bunkers, okay? Because you're afraid that the world will end and you wanna live forever, so you build bunkers. This is Mark Zuckerberg's bunker in Hawaii. It's kind of stupid because if the world's going to end, is your bunker going to save you? Probably not, okay? But he spent like $26 million, or $260 million on this stupid thing, hoping to live forever. And this is what it looks like on the inside. It's crazy to like go through life thinking about how to live forever and how to survive an apocalypse. Why not just enjoy your life, okay? They also join secret societies. Why? Because secret societies may have the secret to reincarnation, or the secret to immortality, or the secret to longevity. They don't care. They have so much money that they're willing to invest in everything. Okay, so they're willing to try blood transfusion. They're willing to build bunkers. They're also willing to join secret societies. And that's why you see secret societies growing in power and popularity today. They also worship Satan, okay? Because again, if you have $10 billion, you're stuck, right? Because you don't want to die. Like, you don't want to, it's what we call sunk cost fallacy, right? You're like, I worked so hard for this, and I have the best life, but I'm going to die. And when I die, all this is gone. I have to start all over again. I don't want to do that, okay? So they're willing to do anything, including worship Satan. In fact, what we will learn is that the religion of Satan became so popular in order to solve this problem, where wealthy people, they want to live forever. And they want the world to stay the same as it is now. But as you learn in this class, it is impossible for the world to stay the way it is. Change is a constant. Things move in cycles. Capitalism gives rise to wealth, but it also destroys wealth. That's just the nature of life, okay? Slaves became an economy, but this is a very basic economy. Then you develop bronze, okay? And bronze now is extremely valuable, okay? Everyone wants it, so it's universal. You can store a lot of value in it because it's hard to make, and now you can move it around, okay? So in other words, bronze became the first real universal currency in the world. And this allowed for rapid globalization in the world. So think of the equivalent of bronze today is, of course, the US dollar, right? The US dollar is universal. Everyone wants it. It's a store of value, and it's mobile as well. And so it's a US dollar which allows for the rapid growth of capitalism around the world, okay? Now, let's discuss how capital works. All right, so what we know is that we humans are actually composed of two natures. We are composed of an altruistic nature, and we are composed of a utilitarian nature, okay? Altruistic just means that you care about human relationships. You want to be nice to people because you want to be their friends, they're part of your family, okay? Utilitarian just means that you don't care about others, you just care about the goal, the profit, money, power, okay? And we're composed of both sides. So think about when you go to a restaurant, right? If the meal is good, you pay a lot of money for it and you give the waitress a tip. When you go home to dinner and your mother is happy to see you, your mother cooks you a really nice meal and then you say, thank you, right? You don't want to do the opposite, right? Where you go to a restaurant and you're like, thank you, and then you leave. And you don't want to go to your mother's house and like say to your mother, hey, this meal was fantastic. Here's $1,000 for you, okay? It would screw everything up, okay? So we have two different natures and we keep them separate. What capital does, that's very interesting, is that it moves us from the altruistic state into the utilitarian state. And at first, that's good. Why? Because when you're altruistic, you don't really want to do anything, okay? Because you don't want to offend other people. So there are lots of villages in the world, and they're static. Why? Because for them, what matters is not change. What matters is harmony. And these villages, it kind of sucks to be an outsider. It kind of sucks to stand out. In fact, there are some traditions in which if you're outspoken, if you are thoughtful, if you like to explore, if you're curious, they will kill you and make you a sacrifice to the gods because they see you as a threat to their social system. Okay? So an altruistic system, it doesn't like change. So if you don't do anything to it, it just stays the way it is. So when you bring capital, people now are more motivated to work hard. People are more motivated to innovate and to explore. So at first this is good, okay? Now you're expanding the system. And then you reach a point of its maximum growth. But then what happens is the scale tips over, okay? And people become too utilitarian. And when you become too utilitarian, you cheat. You don't care about others. And this causes a lot of problems, okay? You start to exploit other people. And so when you become too utilitarian, the system collapses. Okay? Does that make sense? Capital comes in the system and it makes it grow really fast. Once it hits a certain point, then it has to collapse. Okay? So let's use another example. Let's just say that you are a leader of a group of people, and it could be a village, it could be anywhere, okay? And if there's no money involved, what do you care about? You care about status. You care about your reputation. You care about how other people see and perceive you, right? So you care about the feelings of others. Once capital enters the equation, then the way that the leader sees you is different. The leader sees you as a commodity to be exploited. Okay? The leader is now like, how much money can I make money off you? Not only that, but the leader, okay, the leader will do what? The leader will align with other leaders, and they will become a cartel, okay, or an elite. And they will together exploit people, okay? But not only that, but they will expand and look for new areas to conquer, okay? Because all they care about now is money, how to expand the capital. But once the capital expands too far, then what happens is only a few people have all the capital. And the people down below, they're enslaved, they're exploited, and they want to destroy the system. They become indifferent. If you force them, they will revolt against you. So the system must collapse, okay? So the argument I'm trying to make to you is This is just the way capital works, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's why the Bronze Age grew, but that's also why the Bronze Age collapsed. And that's why our world grew, but this is also why our world will collapse as well. And people thought that because of trade, because of prosperity, we can't go to war, because why would we? And then, a couple years later, World War I, where tens of millions of people died for no reason, okay? Tens of millions of people died for no reason. It was just a slaughter. And what I want to argue to you is that this is a very common thing. And if you look at the Bronze Age collapse in World War I, we are in a very similar situation, where the world is heavily globalized, it's heavily interconnected, but because of the nature of capital, we will probably fall off the edge at some point, okay? And people would argue that we're already reaching this point. Okay, so again, during the Bronze Age, okay, the High Bronze Age, the Late Bronze Age, 1400 to 1200 BCE, you can see this entire world is interconnected. And what you will also see is at the center of this world is really the Mediterranean and the Aegean Sea, okay? And which city is the most important strategically in this world? It's called this city, Troy, right? Troy, which is why we have the Trojan War. We will discuss actually the Trojan War next class, okay? But I point this out to you, okay? So why is this happening? Well, think about how in a proto-capitalistic system that depends on tin and copper, how do you make money, okay? Well, there are different ways. The first way you can make money is mining. Guess what? It sucks because it's hard work and you don't make that much money out of it, okay? It's just labor. Another way is processing it into ingots. Ingots are just ways to transport the tin and the copper, okay? You can also manufacture into jewelry, pottery, and weapons. Okay, that makes more money. Transporting, it's hard work, but you make more money, okay? Another way is just piracy, just steal the stuff. But the best way you can make money actually is by controlling trade routes, okay? That's what Troy is. Troy is a control of a trade route. And so that's how you make real money during globalization, okay? That's why even today, the Middle East is so important because the Middle East is a center of all global trade. So whoever controls the Middle East controls global trade, okay? So remember this idea. We have empires because empires really are trade routes. Empires are just control of trade routes. Empires back then is very different from empires today. Empires today would be like nation states, which controls borders and have their own language. Back then, empires were just a collection of different trading points, okay, that were aligned with each other. And the Trojan War was just a trade war. That's all it was. We'll discuss this next class, okay? Okay, so you can see why Troy is so important. Because if you're in Anatolia, it's mainly mountains. It's good because you can mine for precious metals and it's easy to defend, but it's hard to access the sea. That's why Troy is so important, okay?